Hello everybody and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Hyperbolic Wine Chamber. April Fools, it's probably gonna be pathetic. Today, we are drinking Magner's Irish Pear Cider. Imported since 1935. I don't know anything about this, but I just got it. Today's wine has been funded by Michael Perrin at Krakissi on Twitter. So if you want to go say thank you for the wine, go to at KRAKISSI on Twitter. They're cool. They provided some money for the wine fund, and this was the first acquisition of that fundage. I actually didn't even realize this was there. I was digging through and just noticed it, and I was like, oh, why did PayPal not email me about this? You fucking bastards. Alright, so today, we're going to be talking about God and religion. Oh boy. I hesitated whether I wanted to talk about this, but I do. And I do because I feel like I have a perspective that is, at least I haven't seen voiced very often, and because of that, I kind of wanted to give my 2 cents. Before we do that, I'm going to take a first sip of the pear Irish cider and see how it is. It smells nice. It's very, very sweet. You can barely taste the alcohol at all. Interesting. I actually kind of like this one. Okay. So, how do I want to even start this? Oh my god. So, I guess maybe some background would probably be appropriate to kind of explain where my current position is on, like, God and stuff. So, I was raised Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic. I went to church every Sunday and every holy day from when I was born until I was 16 years old. And at least 4 of those 16 years, I was being forced to church against my will because I was not a fan of it. Roman Catholicism, at least the brand that was taught in this house, never really appealed much to me, I should say. It was always kind of like the doom and gloom, fire and brimstone. You're gonna burn in hell if you don't follow everything, like, completely 100% by the book, the book. My mom, who was the super religious one in the house, would consistently say when we were kids that she loved us but loved God more, and things like that. My big problem as a kid, I first started really not being into the whole God thing, because when I was a little kid, I never really considered it much. It was just something we did, I never kind of sat down and examined the spiritual and philosophical nuances of the Catholic doctrine. I don't think much 8 to 10 year olds really do that. I just kind of, went to Sunday school, went to CCD, went to church, knelt, stood, bowed whenever we were supposed to, had the little wafer thingy, but I got donuts after the fact. We'd always get donuts after, whether the church would provide them or we'd go down the street to Dunk's and I'd get a big fucking donut, and then, like, I'd be happy. The problem is that it's on a Sunday, and that's 50% of my weekend as a kid when you're going to school, and I don't want to wake up. I want to sleep in late. Because I'm already got up early the day before, because I gotta fucking watch Saturday morning cartoons, fucking Pokemon and Spider-Man, and I'm gonna mute my computer. But, I just found church to be an annoyance, is really where my initial disdain for going to mass came from. I didn't want to go because I was too busy playing video games. I wanted to sleep in, and it was annoying. It was an hour long thing, and my mom's like a parish hopper. At least she was back when I was going to church. So we would go to different parishes all the time. There was a small window of time where we went to mass in Latin, which was really weird. So the whole mass was in Latin. Nobody had any idea what was being said. We just listened to a priest, and the priest, I guess when this is like super hardcore is when you have the mass in Latin, is the priest isn't even allowed to look at you. Like, he has to look at the tabernacle. The tabernacle is where, like, you know, the Eucharist, like the holy, like the body of the little wafer things are. So didn't even get the eye contact. He would be saying the mass to Latin away from us. So you wouldn't hear him very well, which didn't really matter because he was speaking Latin. That was like an hour away. The mass was an hour and a half. So you're burning 3 hours there, an hour in, an hour and a half there, and an hour back. Near the tail end, we would go a couple towns over. So it would be like a half an hour there, mass, then a half an hour back. And because my mom was super religious, we'd have to say a rosary in the car on the way in and back. So it was like 2 hours of like prayer. and we just, it was me and my sister at the time. Neither of us were into it. Neither of us, we were annoyed by it. It wasn't really that I ever sit down, like, I have issues with the doctrine. I just didn't like it. And eventually, at 16, my father, who used to be religious, got out of it and kind of has like his own sort of like kind of like weird personal kind of pseudo spirituality. I approached him because I had to go get confirmed. And confirmation is like when you become an adult in the church or whatever, in the Christian or at least Catholic thing. But you have to stay at church like overnight. You got to like go in, do a bunch of prayer stuff, a bunch of like Jesus activities, and you got to stay overnight. Then you can do something the next day, and then you're confirmed. I'm just like, no, I can't do a whole weekend of church. And the problem was like, you have to. This is the confirmation was when I first started to really kind of think about the doctrine itself. I didn't just sit there and go through the motions, because like they made a big deal out of the fact that like the priests and the people who were talking about confirmation, because I was still going to CCD and crap at the time, they made a big deal about how like this is a big deal in this faith. You know, if to be confirmed means like you believe in all of this. This is something really important to you, and you're kind of like making a contract with God, like with your soul and all that stuff. And that was my first wake-up call, like, wait a minute, none of this jives with me. I'm just going through the motions because I'm being told to, you know. And it was the first time I really realized that like faith was a choice, because I didn't have a choice in my house. I didn't have a choice to go to church. Even though I'd expressed the fact that I wasn't really interested in it, it was always like a firm no, like you have to go. Like this is just, you have to do this, you know? And I don't really blame my mom for that, because if she's knee deep in the whole thing, and so she was worried about my eternal soul. So I don't blame her for being adamant about it. But then you'd go to the priest and the church and stuff, and they would tell you that like this is your choice, and if you don't want to do it, you shouldn't do it. So that's when I started to sit back and really like think about things like, wait a minute, none of this really resonates with me, you know? It's never been something that like I've been gung-ho about. Like I know the rules, I know the ins and outs. Like I've been to CCD and I've been to mass, and I know all the stuff to you know, at least a basic level, but I don't know if I really believe it. I can recite it, but I don't know if it resonates with me. And now you want me to go through this like really big like ritual that's a huge deal in this faith, and literally it's to confirm your belief, and I have no faith to confirm. So it felt really wrong to me, just from a moral standpoint. I didn't, because like none of these people in church that I knew, and I knew a couple people at this point, and the pastor at this church we went to was actually a really nice guy. I just felt bad going up there lying to him, because he was a good guy, and it was just like, I don't feel like this is right. So I approached my dad, because he was the only one I could talk to about this, and be like, Dad, I don't really want to do this. Like, this is an overnight thing, and they're trying to fucking confirm, and I don't think I can confirm without lying. Like, should I lie in a space of God? Like, that seems wrong even by their rules, you know? Like, this, I don't know. Long story short, there's a huge fucking fight between me, my mom, and my dad. I eventually got out of going to confirmation, stopped going to church at 16. Big rift between me and my mom for a while. Kind of, at this point, we've patched it up. She's really not even as religious as she used to be anymore. It used to be bad. Like, I couldn't read Harry Potter because it was the devil. I couldn't play Magic the Gathering because that was the devil. So she would guilt me into giving up my cards that I'd like saved up my allowance to buy, and my Harry Potter books disappeared, and I never got to read past The Prisoner of Azkaban. I still haven't to this day. Very, very religious. So I got out of it. And then when I was no longer like in it, I started really kind of reflecting on all of the things that they were talking about. And it's like, I don't really think this is true, you know? And it affected me for a long time. You know, my first relationship, my first girlfriend suffered because like I always felt guilty about having sex and stuff, because like, you know, in the Christian faith, like, no sex before marriage and all these things. And it took a while to kind of like forgive myself for it. And even to this day, there's always like thoughts of just like, you know, like, what if I'm gonna burn in hell? Like, I've been a very bad Catholic, you know? I think I've been a good person from kind of like a universal morality kind of standpoint, but in terms of like following the Catholic doctrine, I'm way off the fucking beaten path. But my history, I could go into more detail, but that's not really the point of this podcast. I'm already like 10 minutes in, and I've kind of just barely set the stage. I want to talk more about not any specific faiths. I want to talk about like more like not heady, but basic concepts. God in general. Right now, I'm not really a big fan of labels for anything. But if you wanted to kind of like understand my perspective in like a few words, I guess the best description right now would be an agnostic atheist. I don't believe in a God. I don't think there is a God, just based on just my observations. And I know that's the complete opposite of God. Like, God is faith. So God defies observation. But the problem with that for me is that everything else in the entire world is based on science and observable phenomena. And the fact that there is like this big ruling kind of energy and system in place in Judeo-Christian faith, and that you have to take it on faith, it just seems so convenient that there's a loophole for everything. And this is really the first thing that I really honed in on with Catholicism, especially because I was most familiar with it, that really rubbed me the wrong way, is that it was so interesting how the faith had a way to skirt any sort of questions you would have. There was no arguing it. There was always some sort of weird kind of sidestep, feint, dodge to any questions you had. You know, the "he works in mysterious ways" line. And at the same time, it was always interesting to me to consider how archaic religions were kind of seen as a joke and nothing more than entertainment. And it was always a bizarre concept to think of, like, well, you know, we look at like the Egyptian gods like Horus and the Greek gods like Zeus and stuff, and they're characters. They're fictional characters. They're the same thing as like, you know, Harry Potter or like Luke Skywalker or stuff. They're fictional characters that can be like repurposed and reinterpreted and used in fiction all the time. But Jesus Christ isn't. Muhammad isn't. You know, these characters aren't characters. They're historical figures, and all this stuff is true. And it always just felt really odd. Like, why is this? We're so sure that this is bullshit, but this isn't bullshit. But they both have just as much like realistic viability. The only difference is that one is accepted as spirituality and one has long been rejected. So it's 2,000 years from now, is Jesus going to be, you know, parodied and like, you know, you're gonna have like fucking like a God of War video game in VR where you fight Jesus or something instead of like the Greek gods. Like who knows? Like that's the whole thing. It just seems, the faith seems very convenient, and it feels like Catholicism in its kind of current incarnation was developed back in medieval times to control people and to siphon wealth off of people. You know, like, you have to live in poverty because that's going to make yours is the kingdom of heaven, the meek shall inherit the earth, and all that stuff. So give us all your money, give your money to the church, give it to God, and by extension give it to us, the clergy, and you live in abject poverty, but that's a good thing, and you'll be rewarded when you die, you know. But who fucking knows? Because once you're dead, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. It just seems really convenient, you know. Like, how can you? And people make these. I don't want to like get too bogged down in this, because again, I'm still just kind of setting the groundwork of the Vatican is a great example of like almost the hypocrisy of the faith. You know, like, how can you have a city like the Vatican, but your tenants say you have to live in poverty? And I know the current pope is kind of like fucking aware of that hypocrisy, but it's just like the whole thing just collapses upon inspection. The point I really wanted to make with this, though, is that I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic atheist. And I wonder if there are anybody listening, or anybody in general, I'm sure there is, but like, I've never really talked to anybody who kind of thinks about God the way I do. And so much that I'm not an aggressive atheist. You know, you kind of go online and you look up atheism, and there are these people just like, fuck God. God is bullshit. God is stupid. God is a terrible idea. And he's your invisible man in the sky. And if you believe in God, you're an idiot. Science is all that matters. God is nothing but fairy tales, and you're a dumbass. And the atheist community, quote unquote, or just atheists, the most vocal atheists, are people like that. And then, you know, there's probably the everyman atheist who's just like, yeah, I don't really believe in that. And they kind of go on with their day. The reason I use the term agnostic atheist is because I don't think there's a God, but I can't prove it. There's just as much proof that there isn't God, that there is God. Because that's the whole thing. That's kind of going back to the loophole thing I was talking about. God, by definition, is unprovable. So any sort of tangible evidence we can have that would prove God would just be dismissed by the religious as not God. It's like, oh, we figured out the existence, like the existence of the Big Bang. We proved it. We have proof, and like, this is what it is, and like, this is what God was. And they're just like, but that's not God, you know? Like, even the fact that like someone could, like, God could come down to Earth, have a physical embodiment, and not be any of the faiths that we've ever had, like, you know, like, because who the fuck do we know what God is if God is like this big immortal thing? But like, let's say God is real, and God comes down to Earth in a physical body and says, I'm God, I'm going to do all this crazy shit, and yeah, I'm God. Like, now you know, all you people have been asking for proof of God, here I am. I think the atheist would still be like, fuck you, you're not really God, you're just an imposter. And then the religious would be like, no, God is this, God is our faith, and whatever you are, you're not true. You're either like the devil trying to trick us, or you're not God, you're something else. You know, by the fact that you're here physically disproves that you're God. You know, even I think the super religious who believe in things like the rapture and like the second coming and stuff, I think if the second coming actually happened, they probably wouldn't believe it was the second coming. Kind of got sidetracked, but that was a point I did want to make. My perspective is that I'm an atheist under duress. And what I mean by that is that I don't hate God. I actually would prefer if there was a God. I just can't find any reason in my heart of hearts to truly believe that. Because if there is a God, everything has a purpose. I have a purpose, my pain has a purpose, my suffering has a purpose, the suffering I see around me has a purpose. Everything is happening for a reason. Everything that's chaos instantly becomes order. Everything is going completely according to plan. Nothing is wrong. Everything that's happening is just this huge, big, like, supernatural chess game that my tiny little mortal head can't understand, but everything's fine. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. I just gotta do me to the best I can and know that I'm being guided subconsciously by a divine entity that's gonna lead me to exactly the right place I need to go. That would be great! I would prefer that, even if it would kind of give up a bit of my autonomy almost. But the idea that everything's good, that everything's fine, that there's nothing wrong, I find that very appealing. I would love there to be... I'm envious of people who have faith, because they must be so much more sound of mind, so much more calm, so much more collected. Because they believe, truly believe, that there's a guy up there making sure everything's okay. I would love that. But to go back to what I said about how faith seems so convenient, and how all these old dead faiths are just jokes now, and that everything that throughout human history that was once attributed to God has been shown to be a natural, understandable phenomenon. I can't believe, because it seems ridiculous given the circumstances, to continue to have belief. I would love to, but God itself, religion as a concept, seems like a desperate ploy by humanity to have something bigger, to have that control. I think everybody wants what I just described, to know that everything's okay. The difference between the religious and myself is that they can find a way to buy into it. And as much as I want to buy into it, I can't. So I'm an atheist under duress. I don't want to be an atheist. I just have no choice. I don't know if other people feel like that. I don't know. I've never talked to anybody about faith really all that much. But like even just in casual conversation, all the atheists are always just like, fuck God. And I can't get mad at religious people. Like, they do some stupid shit sometimes when they bring their faith into, like, politics and into, like, you know, people's lifestyle and shit like that. But just, like, when they're doing their own thing, go for it. Like, you're definitely more mentally healthy than I am. I'm on antidepressants, seeing a therapist, suicidal, because my life's falling apart. And I can't bring myself to believe that there's any greater purpose than just some crazy bullshit, genetic fucking cocktail, random chance fucking destroyed, doomed universe around us, and there's nothing to live for, and I have to build my own fucking destiny and my own fucking purpose with my own bare hands, and every day I don't do it, just another day closer to my own death when I turn into nothing, and that's it. The universe is big and vast, and I am pointless and have no purpose, and I just have to sit here and try and forge my own purpose in this tiny little speck of existence I have before I'm dead and everything is forgotten and I no longer exist. There's no afterlife. This is all I have. And right now it's really shitty. That's terrifying. I would love to have the comfort of faith. I'm envious of people who have the comfort of faith. But I can't do it. I don't know if I even want to, if I could, because I'm so kind of, I don't want to say logically, but just like observationally grounded. But I can see the appeal. I can understand the appeal. I'm envious of the appeal. So that's my thing on God. That was the big point I wanted to make. This is a very ranty video. I would love to believe in God, because I think there would be this kind of like a placebo effect. There'd be a placebo effect of if I was truly confident that I was being guided by God, or I had God on my side, and that everything was happening for a reason, I would probably self-actualize better than I do now, because the stresses and the depression and the anxiety that I have right now would be at least partially lifted because of that faith. So even if there was no God, just the belief in it would probably allow me to function on a higher level than I am right now, because my mind would be less burdened with all these heavy, fucking crazy, deep philosophical ideas and the horribly bleak outlooks that my scientific-based perspective leads to with those questions. I don't know. That's really all I got. I've kind of wanted to talk about this for a while. Not exactly the most well put together podcast, very rambly, but there you go. Wanted to whine about God. Whined about God. Let me know in the comments if you hated it. I'm Tommy Oliver. Thanks again to Michael for the wine. It's actually a good choice. I like it. So if you want something really sweet that barely tastes like alcohol, Magners Irish Pear Cider. Not a bad choice. Take it easy, guys.